Okay, I'm gonna just go ahead and get started with reading our like, notice of non-discrimination, all sort of the starting stuff. So my name is Abby. I am a transportation policy analyst with the Boston Region MPO. This is the April meeting of the Transit Working Group. If you did not intend to be in the April meeting of the Transit Working Group, um, do what you have to do now. um, so to sort of kick things off, our notice of non-discrimination, you are invited to participate in our transportation planning process, regardless of your race, color, national origin, including limited English proficiency, religion, creed, gender, ancestry, ethnicity, disability, age, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity or expression, veteran status, or background. Next slide. For our accessibility statement, so this meeting is accessible to people with disabilities. Zoom products are compliant with exceptions with the following standards: Web Content Accessibility Guidelines 2.1, Level AA standards, and revised Section 508 standards. If you require any additional accommodations in order to participate fully in the meeting, or if you have any technical difficulties, please contact Lauren McGee, MPO staff at lmagee@ctps.org or 857-702-3706 or via the chat box. And lastly, our Zoom guidelines, all participants will join the meeting with muted microphones. Please rename yourself to include your first name, your last name, and your affiliation. To participate in the discussion, please select the raise hand function. You can find this by clicking either on the participants button at the bottom of the screen, and a window will pop up with a raise hand button at the bottom, or the reactions toolbar button, the reactions button in the toolbar. And lastly, if you're on the phone, you can use *9 to raise your hand. Yeah, so like I said, my name is Abby. I'm a transportation policy analyst with the MPO. Because there are quite a few of us, which is great, I think instead of going around and saying introductions, if people would be willing to put in the chat just your name, what organization you're here with, just so we can kind of get a lay of the room. And in the meanwhile, while folks are doing that, I will introduce our presenters. So if you could go to the next slide, Lauren. So today we're going to have a demonstration of a transit service map that MassDOT has been working on with Patricia Cahill on Jonathan Church's team. Patricia is a transit planner with MassDOT, and I will pass it to her.
Sure, thanks, Abby. Can you hear me okay?
I can.
Oh, perfect, thanks. Well, hi, everyone. I know some of you, but not all of you. Thank you for the introduction. So today, I have just a few slides that I'll probably go through quickly and then move more into a demonstration. So I'll start those and then get the whole spiel. Let's see. All right, can folks see my screen? Beautiful.
Yes.
Oh, great, thank you. So with the help of two incredible co-ops over the last summer, Kavya Lakshminaran and Lihia Puma, we have been able to put together a real comprehensive map of all of the transit services in Massachusetts, inclusive of public, private, and several other organizations. We did this because in conversations with some of you, but mostly internally, we were really realizing that we didn't have like a one-stop shop for understanding who all of our potential partners or stakeholders were when, at least here at MassDOT, when we were partaking in any given project. We would sometimes stumble upon transit providers as we were in the middle of a project, and this tool would not only ensure that we were always speaking to the right people, we knew who should be in the room when we were talking about potential service changes or service expansions or other accessibility projects. But it would also allow us to see where there are connections that could be made, where there are gaps for certain populations. And it's also just a great overall indicator of transportation services in Massachusetts. And also, if anyone has any questions along the way, please raise your hand or drop them in the chat. Happy to answer anything. So in order to do that, our two co-ops in our team went digging. through a variety of data sources. We've listed them here mostly through, well, we took a look at what was already on Geodot, whether that was a GTS file or a shapefile. We also went through RideMatch, that has a screenshot here on the right to see what providers were already there. We did a deeper dive into a list of private providers provided by DPU, and then also went through into MassCommute, which is all of our transportation management associations. And sometimes this data looked like a GTFS file, sometimes it was a static map. And so we just aggregated all of that into ArcMap, so it was all in one place. And then we needed a way to organize all of that. It was also an enormous amount of information. And so we needed to synthesize to make sure that the map could even open. You'll see what I mean in just a second. So we organized that in the categories that you see on your screen. So between transportation management associations, then we also had councils on aging and aging service access points, because there's just a slight difference in their service areas, even though they provide similar services. We also had the RTAs, including the MBTA. We had ferries, both public and private ferries, university shuttles, as well as medical shuttles, nonprofit or volunteer organizations that provide rides, municipally run services, as well as private carriers or semi-private carriers. And the map can all be sorted, and I'll demonstrate that in just a second. We classified the service in two ways. As you'll see in the map in a few moments, we had on-demand services, which we created color labeled shapes in the ArcMap file. And then we had routes, which were lines. And then we also had stops where that stop information was available. Within the map, you can also go into our attribute table at any time where there were some organizations like universities where we were able to have information at the stop level, at the route level, and at the service area level. But there were others, such as a private carrier or a ferry, where not all of that was able to be applied. And there were also some instances where private carriers, we had stop information, but we did not have route information. So we knew where they were going, but not necessarily how they were getting there. And so I'm just going to show you some examples of what the attribute table looks like, so you see what type of information would be available to you. Right now, all of this lives in a private group on Geodot because this is a static map. And so we didn't want this to be a publicly available map that people would refer to, knowing that information has likely changed since we completed this map in December 2024. So as you can see here, and I'll go to the next slide so it's a little bit larger. So for example, for this here, this is for a transportation, what we're calling transportation programs run by a veterans association. You have the provider, the name of the shuttle, the route name, the name of every stop. And then we also have a section that is who can ride, because sometimes that's only older adults, people with disabilities, veterans, students, etc. And then we also have a link to where we found all of that information so that if folks are accessing this map and want to double check, knowing again that this is static, they can verify that easily within the attribute table. Just as another example, this is how routes show up. You can also see the route name, the provider. We do have it listed when it's available, who can ride the ride, if the ride is restricted by type. For example, if it can only be a ride to a medical provider, to a shopping destination or a school. We also have accessibility information where that was available. So whether or not there is wheelchair accessibility, whether or not there are language services available, and then again, have a link to where we found that information so that folks can get the most updated data that they can. And then lastly, this is just how service areas will show up in an attribute table. Has mostly the same information, but we just make sure that folks can sort by RTA. And so they know exactly who they're taking a look at. And then we have also introduced this service column on whether or not it's a seasonal service or a year-round service. And so with that, I will do the exciting stuff, which is to show you the actual map. Um, Let me just make sure. Are folks seeing a map in front of them on their screen? Beautiful. Okay, thank you. So we have all of this information in two ways. Some of it lives in shapefiles on Sheodot, but I think the easier way to really interact with this is through an experience builder tool that our co-ops created. So if you take a look here, it might look either really exciting or really overwhelming, depending on how you feel. But the most useful thing is we have everything coded by color, the routes, the stops, and the service areas. And we have a series of tools over here on the left. So you can access the legend where stops, service areas, and routes are all in the same color based on the service provider. So whether or not that's a university, a hospital, a council on aging, etc. Then you can also sort by layers. So for example, I can turn off the private carrier routes layer if I don't want to see those. I can turn off RTA service area layer if I don't want to see that, which can really help narrow down, particularly if you're only looking at a certain service provider. And then, excuse me, and then lastly, what also could be useful is you can use this pin to either drop a specific pin or to draw a service area. You know, for example, if you're doing a project within a certain municipality, you can go in here, you can drop the pin. It's going to take a second to process. But what it will do, and so here it says I'm in Spencer, Massachusetts. And what it will do is within this circle, which I've set as a 1 mile radius, it will say that there are 4 RTAs that may go to this area. And there are 3 either councils on aging programs here. And it will tell you, so for example, this is Mark Connects, a council on aging van service, and a Lyft discount service that is operated by another provider. And if you click on each of those, it will open up the attribute table for everything that exists there so that you can go in and, for example, this Lyft discount is operated by the Carlisle Council on Aging. It's available to seniors and people with disabilities in the Carlisle region, anywhere within 55 miles from Carlisle, and that it is curb-to-curb service. So this is something we've been playing around with. Again, the caveat that I will mention here, I guess, too, is one, it's a private group on Geodot. So if you would like to use it, please contact me. I'm happy to add you to the group so you can play around with it. But just know that it's not public because right now all of the information is static. We're hoping to get another fantastic co-op to help us update this information this coming summer. So it will be updated in 2025. Now, I know that was a lot, but I'll stop there for any questions or reactions or anything else. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. This seemed very cool and very useful, especially from like the internal side that you were talking about. See, there are already a couple of hands. So Susan, do you want to go?
Sure, thank you. Well, first off, my reaction is Yahoo! I am so excited when Jonathan Church introduced this to us about, I think, a year ago. I was so excited because I have wanted this for so very long. So thank you so much to you and your team for putting this together. I think this is going to be so valuable on so many different levels. And I just have a couple quick questions. So you did mention, so it sounds like this is a kind of thing you're anticipating keeping updated at least once a year, maybe through summer co-ops. So that's good. But let's see. One question I have is there going to be any sort of narrative report that might come out of this, you know, what you have right now that might go to like the MassDOT board and others? Especially because not a lot of people can look into this at the moment. So that was my one question. Then my other question is really simple. You mentioned a category called on demand, and I'm just curious, do you really mean demand responsive in terms of anything that's by demand, like even services that you have to call a day or two in advance? Versus on demand being a little bit more like, you're getting it like within 15 minutes or so.
Oh, great. Well, thank you so much. I'll go to your second
Yeah.
question first, and then yes, you're correct. It is. We should relabel as demand response. Thank you for
Okay. Thank
the
you.
yeah the clarification of the difference. No, thank you. And for the first one, the last 2 summers have really been focused on building the map itself. And so I think now what we can do is look forward into how it will be used. And we have our co-ops create a memorandum of everything that they did, laying out its purpose and all of its tools. So it could be that that is something we could share. Right now, this lives in OTP and now with you all, but we haven't elevated it yet to any outside partners just because the information becomes so out of date so quickly. But I know we have been working with the Rail and Transit Division and some other service providers to create GTFS files, which would mean that this map would change every time a service changes, which would make it just more useful rather than kind of the enormous lift that occurs when we have a co-op. Does that get to your question?
Yes, thank you. And it just brought to mind one other one. Is there a
Oh, of
way
course.
that communities can at least take a quick look at their area just to identify if stuff they're aware of is represented, like everything's represented?
Yeah, so I think we don't necessarily want to make it public
Right,
necessarily,
I
but I
know
think
that.
for our partners, absolutely. And that's something where I can add you to the group on Geodot so that you can go in and verify. I think we'll be doing a lot of verification over the course of this summer just to make sure we have everything correct. Um, but yes, but we're not necessarily going to open up this tool as anyone with a Geodot account can
Right.
access it because I don't want someone to think a service exists, but it actually closed 4 months ago.
Right. Thank you very much.
But thank you. Yeah.
Chinmay?
Hi, yeah, this looks great. I think it's going to be helpful for yeah, for a bunch of stuff. So I think that this was actually probably in your slides, but I think I missed it. Are
Oh yeah.
taxis included in this, particularly those that receive significant subsidies from municipalities?
I'm sorry. Can you repeat the first part of your question?
Sorry, is
Who are
there
you
some
asking about?
background noise over here?
Oh, it's probably me. Don't worry about it.
Um, yeah, so the I think the first part I was just thanking you for putting this together. I think it looks really great. But yeah, I was asking about if there were if taxi providers are included on this
Oh,
map.
oh, okay, gotcha. So we we don't have taxis as a layer. If a service provider, like so for example, if a council on aging or if there's a specific transportation program that utilizes taxis, then the taxis included. But we didn't include taxis as a layer, and similarly, we didn't include like Lyft or Uber or other TNCs as a service, just knowing that those are available in most locations, and we were focused more on services that had geographic limits. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
perfect. Thank you.
Oh no, thank you.
John Strauss.
Thanks, Abby. I had a question. Here in Burlington,
Mm-hmm.
we're in the sort of in the, I don't know, the Bermuda Triangle, so to speak, because we have the MBTA, the RTAs, Lowell RTA, we have transportation management, we have a lot of different services. So
Mm-hmm.
I would like to get a peek at this map if I could. So
Of course.
would we email you and then you would give us an access code, or how would we get a look, just a look, not to start a big thing, but just to see what you've done so we can see all the intersecting services that are here.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I can definitely, depending on how you want to view it, if you if looking at like an Excel file, for example, and searching for providers is more helpful, I can provide that. Otherwise, I can absolutely add you to our Geodot account if you have a Geodot account. And if you don't, I can send you a static version of the map. It just might be a little more cumbersome because there are so many layers. But I'm also happy to just meet with you and we can do it in person if it's just a couple questions, whatever's easier.
I guess maybe, well, what I do want to do is I want to look. I love the way that you can see all the veteran services. That's an issue for us here. So what I want to be able to do is just for my own information to see what's actually going on here in Burlington. So I'd like to
Oh,
look
sure.
at all the layers,
Mm.
and that would be about that. So I don't know which alternative is going to be the best for you, whether it's put me on GeoDot and I just look around, or if you want to catch up sometime, that's fine
Oh
too.
yeah, that might be the most satisfying for you, and not just for you, for anybody else on the call, is to be added to that team. And then if you have questions for me, I'm happy to go in. But I'm sure I think playing around will be satisfying for folks. And I think I just saw something. You can absolutely have my email. I can post that in the chat.
Okay, and then we email you, and then you can set us up with
Mm-hmm.
GeoDot. Fantastic. Thank you
Absolutely.
very much.
Yeah. No, thanks, John.
Len.
Yeah, thank you. I'll join everyone else in saying this is great. And so one of the reasons we wanted something like this was to be able to get a sense of the gaps. And so who, who's going to do the gap analysis? I mean, let me rephrase that. Is MassDOT planning on doing any gap analysis? And if not, then I guess we'd be on the MPO and the various MPOs meet to get together and try to determine the gap analysis. And I mean, as you can imagine, there are various gaps. I mean, gaps in intra-type services like veteran services, and of course the issues where you get to borders, between services, like how do people cross those borders? So I'll just back up to my first question: Is MassDOT planning on doing gap analysis?
Well, I can say I'm super curious about it. I don't have a timeline for when we would get to something like that, because we've mostly been focused on maintenance,
right?
And making sure that we're not doing any kind of analysis until we're sure that we have at least most of the providers in here.
Right.
So if you want to dig into it, Len, I would highly encourage you to do so. And if you could just invite me along to know your findings, that would be great. Just because I don't have a timeline for you, so I can't say whether or not you could accomplish something before we do.
Right, gotcha. And of course, I mean, it doesn't need to be like, I don't want to create a straw man. The level of accuracy that you have, is good enough. I applaud the fact that you're going for 100% accuracy, or at least something close to it. But if a service drops out, that's fine. We have a good sense of what's now available, and of course, the types of gaps are like what kind of demand is there, that isn't being met, because there are gaps in the service areas. But then the more interesting one is like, what kind of demand there would be, if the network was more connected, and more dense. So if that's an invitation to explore this, well, just consider the invitation accepted, and I'll be in touch with you, in order to determine, the kind of access to get. And of course, I'd be happy to stay in touch and give you like whatever I learned, at whatever rate you wanted. All right, thank you very much.
Yeah, that would be incredible. Thank you. I think absolutely layering this with demand data would be super interesting.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'll need some help, but I think you might be up for it. So we'll work it all out. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks.
Sandy.
Thanks, Abby. Yeah, so Patricia, I know we've spoken about this a whole lot, and I'm remain thrilled with how it's going and how it's really come together. It's especially, I think, rewarding for me, because I remember kind of the inception of this work coming from this group and various folks who are in the room now who have pushed for doing something like this for several years now. So really, really happy to see it coming back and kind of coming to full fruition here. And I just want to mention, in terms of how this can be put into action, to be responsive to Len's question, points that other folks have brought up. And Len, I always love the way you think. At the T, we're putting together what we're calling a mobility integrations plan that we're kind of putting the final touches on right now, and we're hoping to release for the public sometime in May or June. And that really is looking at how we want to partner with other mobility providers, how we want to evaluate some of these questions about connections between systems and pilots and partnerships with other types of operators. And I know I've spoken to many of the folks here about that. I think it would potentially be a great thing to discuss at a future transit working group meeting, but actually this mapping effort comes up as one of the action items in our mobility integrations plan, because we plan to use this data and work with MassDOT to keep it maintained and updated. And we have several ideas stemming from that, as taking inventory of our connection points to other systems and trying to figure out where we can do some early action items to just make those connection points better and easier and simpler for a more seamless experience for the riders. So I think this data set has awesome potential for being put into practice across a wide variety of domains. And for folks who are here from outside the T, please do reach out. I can throw my email in the chat and reach out to me, reach out to Patricia, and let us know how we can work together.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks, Sandy. I think this is definitely something that anybody can use. So far, we've been just an aggregator, but definitely don't want to stop people from using this to accomplish some really great projects. And I'll drop my email in the chat, as Sandy said.
Yeah, I think that's something that we've talked a lot at this group about. Also, I'm sorry if I've gotten a couple chat messages that my microphone is really quiet, so I'm trying to talk really loudly, but I'm sorry if I am coming off really quiet. But I think that is something that we've talked a lot at this group about, is just like the power of being able to visually see gaps as opposed to like talking about them, like saying like, oh, well, I know that this service ends in this area, or like this is a gap that I know about, but being able to actually see on like a network level, I just think is really powerful, and I think would be really powerful for the MPO if we ever did decide to want to do any sort of like gap analysis or like take that level of coordination forward. So very happy. Any other thoughts from folks? All right. Great. Well, we can have a fairly short meeting today. That's fine. If anybody does have anything that they want to add or talk about, or any sort of like ideas that they think like this type of data might be useful for either in their work or in their planning purposes, please feel free to speak up, let us know. But otherwise, we can just move on to members items. So in terms of members items, if anybody has any updates on like municipal or transit projects they want to share, any grant awards, any events coming up, any sort of information that would be helpful to share with the folks in this group.
I'm good.
Jen.
Sorry, this is not a members item, but just something that came to mind. That like maybe one potential use case down the line for something like this is integration into Mapit or some other way of like very early in a project development for proponents to be able to identify where there may be need for coordination with the T, but also the RTAs on projects. So anyway, I wanted to throw that in the mix.
No, thank you. And Susan.
Hi, just an event that we're hosting that's open to the public. It'll be on Thursday, May 29th. We are hosting Anna Zivart. She's the author of When Driving is Not an Option, Steering Away from Car Dependency. It's a really excellent book written from the perspective of someone with a disability who has not been able to drive, and she really is calling upon planners and policymakers to really consider all non-drivers, youth, people with disabilities, seniors, and so on, in their planning and policies. I personally thought it was a great quick read. I can drop a link where you can find all our events, and then this one will be on there May 29th, and you're all welcome. And if anyone has trouble getting a book, reach out to me. I've got a few you can borrow. Thank you.
Yeah, that would be great if you want to put that link in the chat. And I think you might have sent me the link via email, but if not, I'll ask you for it and I can add that to like the follow-up email after this meeting that I'll be sending. All right. Jen.
Not exactly transit, but in case anyone is interested, the city of Boston is hosting several try and e-bike events on City Hall Plaza. I'll put a link to the chat to those.
Awesome. Very exciting. All right. Well, if nobody has anything else, then I want to thank Patricia again. Like, as everybody has said, I think that this data will be extremely useful, especially once it's further validated, like you said, and able to be distributed a bit more widely for folks. So thank you again for all the work that you and the previous co-ops did and future co-ops will do and everything going into this. And I appreciate you taking the time to come describe the process and all the work that's been done so far. Yeah, so if that's it, then we can adjourn for the day. I will be reaching out in the next week-ish with the recording of this meeting. I'll put a couple of links in the follow-up email from the events that we just talked about and the date of the upcoming meeting, which will be in late June, early July. And thank you all for coming today.
Great
Yeah,
meeting.
thank you so much.
Thank
Give
you.
our regards to Jonathan Church. Great work, everybody.
I will.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye
Bye.
bye.